Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the one and only light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh Noah's the Popo. What's up, my brother?
I am back. Little sleep, but I am back, brother.
Yeah, I know. What? Tell us why you have a little sleep right now.
Because I have a little monster that came out of my wife about a week ago, and I'm pretty sure he ain't stopped crying since.
Oh, man. And we are also joined by the one and only Mr. Donut Operator. What is going on, Donut?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. No, thanks for coming on, man. It's funny. So, Donut Operator, if you guys don't know, is pretty, what do I say? How would I say this? Not prolific. Famous, yeah. Yeah, famous. No. He famous.
Like Z-list famous.
Here we go.
But no, Donut, go ahead.
We might need a separate intro for that awesome mustache he has. So, Billy, you might have to edit that in.
So I've been following Donut for a while now. Donut does a lot of debriefs of police critical incidents, and he also does a lot of comment. I can't talk today. Commentating on different things that have happened in the police world. Is that the right word? Did I say commentating? That's the right word, right? All right, cool.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think the first video I saw of yours, Donut, was when you actually debriefed the guy that was the officer that responded to like an active shooter, and then he used a rifle to shoot the guy on the freeway, which was a pretty good debrief. So that's when I start following you, man, and I've been a fan ever since. So thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, dude. Good to be here.
So let's get into it, man. Let's just jump right into it. Let's get into some current events. One of the biggest current events, last episode I didn't have, I was actually by myself. AJ was, busy being a new dad and being kept up at night. And then the savage over here, Billy, stepped away because he was actually doing wedding stuff, wedding planning. So it was all by myself. So that was the hardest. If you guys have never done a podcast by yourself, that is pretty difficult, man. Like, after the first 5 to 10 minutes, I was like, what else do I talk about?
Yeah, so about the weather.
Yeah, exactly. So how's little man doing? AJ, tell us about the childbirth. Was it good? I mean, what happened?
Oh, man, it was definitely something. So she went into labor. I couldn't even tell you the time. I want to say around 2 p.m. on the 27th. Labor lasted forever. Her heart rate kept skyrocketing, and little man's heart rate kept dropping, as well as his oxygen levels. So it was a horrible labor. They kept turning her and flipping her and hooking her up to oxygen. At one point, a bunch of staff members rushed in, put her on all fours, hooked her up to oxygen. The doctor came in. They're like, we're gonna have to do an emergency C-section. It was wild, man. Like it was stressful. I think all in all, the labor lasted about 14 hours. But the really cool thing about it is when the doctor came in and started prepping both of us for the C-section, Shelby kind of teared up and she's like, this is a major surgery. Like, I don't want to have a C-section. So all the staff kind of left and they're like monitoring little man's oxygen and heart rate. And we just prayed. Like we had like this like long prayer. And for the first time in forever, because every 5 to 10 minutes, his levels would drop. His levels stayed the same for about an hour.
Wow.
So they also would have had to do a C-section because she wouldn't dilate more than 7 centimeters, I guess is what it's called. I'm still learning all this stuff. But she was like at a 7 forever. So after that hour had passed, after we prayed, they came back in and checked her and she was at a 9. So the doctor's like, hey, you might be able to push this baby out, like give us a little bit longer. So about another 30 minutes, 45 minutes passed, his level stayed the same. And the doctor came in and like, okay, it's go time. So she pushed him out. His head came out. He had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck twice. So she was able to like pop that from around his neck, push him out the rest of the way. And then they put him on her chest and he was purple, like purple.
Oh my goodness.
And I was freaking out, man. Like they're like smacking him and like rubbing him and trying to twist him to get a reaction. And he's like not reacting. So they took him from us, started working on him in like the other end of the room for a while. Then they brought him back and he was good. He was like normal color and whatnot. And, he was crying and making noises like a normal baby. So they took us upstairs. We went to sleep for about an hour. And during that hour, they told us like, we're going to come in, take him, do it like a head to toe examination, which is called like a transitional phase, which is apparently pretty normal. So we were asleep for an hour And we woke up to more doctors coming in our room, and they're like, hey, we got to take him to the NICU. We can't steady his oxygen levels. His oxygen keeps dropping. So they took him down to the NICU, and it was awful, man. Like, we're thankful that he's healthy, and, he's healthy now. But we had to go down there every like 2.5 hours to feed, and we got so little sleep, and, people wanted to come and visit. So it was just a lot, but he's home now. He's healthy, and I'll take the middle of the night wake up screams and no sleep because little man is good. So
oh man, that's a blessing to hear, man. And for all three of my kids, it was a different experience, man. When Grayson came out, he had broke his collarbone coming through the birth canal.
Yep.
When Gavin came out, she had to go into a C-section, unplanned. And then when Rylan came out the biggest out of all my babies. I think Rylan was 9 pounds 4 ounces. And yeah, man, it was so funny, man. The doctor set up like she was about to take a snap from a quarterback, and she started pulling her out. Oh, and then she started yanking my baby's head. I'm like, are you about to snap my baby's neck? So, man, I could tell you, man, that emotional high and low is crazy. You have a son too, right, Donut?
Yeah, I do. He's 10 years old now. He's awesome. I just have the one, and I don't think I'm going to have any more.
Listen, I don't blame you one bit because,
man.
I mean, people told me like prior to going into this, like, get your sleep now, get your sleep while you can. It's stressful, blah, blah, blah. But understatement of the century.
You were like, yeah. And now it's like,
yeah.
Shoot,
I'm brushing it off like, oh yeah, nah, y'all ain't getting no sleep. Like, I'm gonna be all right.
So this funny. I was talking this morning. I was talking to AJ, and I was like, yeah, man, Gavin, my second. I was like, yeah, he didn't start sleeping through the night till he was like 2 years old. He was like, bro, don't say that at all.
Yeah, please don't say that.
And then Billy,
Please
how was Jacob's? His birth was pretty good, right?
Yeah, just like AJ, his oxygen would drop every time she pushed. But everything was fine. He came out, they called sunny side up, like face up, so it was a little bit harder. But other than that, it went pretty smooth.
The first time when I was in the operating room and they said sunny side up, I was like, we're not cooking eggs in here, bro. I didn't know what they were talking about. So yeah, it's a crazy experience, man. So I'm glad he's healthy. Glad Shelby's doing good, man. Very, very happy to hear that. So in other news, other current event news before we get to Donut, I want to ask you guys, coronavirus, is it media hype or is it a real threat? What do you guys think?
Media hype.
I don't know, man. I'm hearing it from so many different people, different stories, and I have no idea.
Yeah,
I know all the dang toilet paper's gone from the store.
And hand sanitizer and soap and everything else people should normally be buying, which is weird to me. Like, I think it's weird that we have to put out like informational like reports to wash your hands. Like, are we not washing
Well,
our
and that's
hands
the
that
thing.
much?
Like, they talk about how do we prevent the coronavirus, but it's basic stuff, washing your hands, hygiene type stuff, and simple as that. The other thing is like the flu's killed like 17,000 people, and the flu doesn't get any type of hype. But I want to do my fair foul early before. So we do this thing called fair foul, and it's basically, is it fair? Is whatever I'm about to say, is it fair or is it foul? And so here's my fair or foul for the episode, and I think Billy had one later too. But I was at the mall the other day with my kids, and so they had to use the restroom. So we walked into the restroom, and so I was actually in the stall while my oldest is helping my son wash his hands and everything. So then I could hear my son knocking on the stall, like, "Hey, Daddy, like, are you almost done? Are you almost done?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm almost done. Like, chill out. like I'm coming." So then I opened the door, and like he's like, I can tell he's kind of scared. And then like Grayson, my oldest, was like, "Yeah, Daddy, he's scared." I'm like, "Why is he scared?" So then they don't want to say it because the guy's still in there. So we walk out, and like there's a guy that's using a urinal, but he has a mask on. He's an Asian guy. And so I guess it just kind of freaked them out because they were like, they never really seen nobody walk around. So Grayson was like, "Why is there a doctor in the restroom?" I was like, "No, son." I was like, he's just wearing the mask because, yada, yada, yada. So that's not the fair or foul part. This is the fair or foul part. So we wash our hands. We're cleaning up. And so as I'm washing my hands, I'm looking in the mirror, and that dude that was just using a urinal just walks out the bathroom without washing his hands.
Oh, betrayal.
So I'm like, let me get this straight. So you're afraid of catching coronavirus, but yet you don't want to wash your hands after using the restroom? So
Betrayal.
fair foul that, I mean, now Grayson was like, Grayson, I guess, told me, he was like, well, he washed his hands before he went to the restroom. I'm like, yeah, but so
Which might make more sense.
so I don't know. Maybe I was off on my thinking on that one, bro. But I was like, man, this dude walked in here afraid of catching coronavirus, but yeah, he don't want to wash his hands after, touching
Fair.
this thing.
Definite fair.
Yeah, that's gross.
So, Donut Man, let's get to you, man. Tell us who you are, bro, and what you do now. And I know you have some military experience, and yeah, let our audience know who you are.
Oh man, well, I joined the Navy when I was 19. Spent 5 years doing that. Didn't do much, but tried to become a Navy SEAL. Ended up getting hurt in training. Got out of the Navy. Spent about a year doing whatever I could. I was a bartender. I was a private investigator for a few months, but that was the most boring thing I've ever done in my entire life. It's not exciting at all. And then I put in an application at the Spartanburg City Police Department, the only one I put in because I just happened to live there at the time. They called me back and I got accepted. I was myself and the other guy I was hired with, it was 2 out of like 100 applicants that got accepted in, and was a police officer for about 3 years, did some SWAT stuff. Did some narcotic stuff, and yeah, man, I decided I wanted to do YouTube just out of the blue one day. I always enjoyed watching other YouTubers, and so I just quit policing. That was the dumbest mistake ever. I should have thought about it a little bit more, but I was like, I believe in myself. Ended up being broke as a joke for like 3 years. I lived in my mom's basement for like 2 years. I wrote for Blue Lives Matter a little bit to kind of make ends meet. And yeah, dude, it just kind of blew up. I kept doing the police stuff and I kept grinding and I kept streaming on Twitch. And I mean, now I have almost 1.4 million subscribers just on YouTube.
That's crazy. So if you had to do it all over again, would you have kept your job for a while, or?
Yeah, definitely would have kept my job for at least a few more months. But I thought I had the numbers worked out. Like, YouTubers make so much money. No, no.
Oh man. So tell me what that decision was like, as far as like, were you just not a fan of police work and that's why you just wanted to hurry up and get out, or was YouTubing just your passion? You're like, hey, I'm just going to run and chase after my passion. Because, there are, and I recognize there are a lot of police officers out there that don't just do police work, me being one of them. I mean, one of the things I also do is I speak. We have a podcast. We have a whole bunch of other things. And so, it's not uncommon for police officers, especially nowadays, and I traveled recently. I think I went to, I think it was Florida, and I was speaking to some cops in Florida, and they were telling me, I think they make on an annual basis like $36,000, which was mind blowing to me because in Southern California, I'm not going to tell you guys what my salary is, but let's just say it's Southern California. Yeah, it's a lot. And so when they told me those numbers, I was like, wow, how do people survive? So what went into your process as far as like, you just didn't want to do this anymore, or you just want to go for your passion, and then, police work was just kind of secondary?
It was a lot of stuff that came together in the end, especially the pay. Like, I was in South Carolina and I made less than 36,000, man. I was making like, I was making $15.36 an hour when I left.
Wow.
That was that. And yeah, I was like, well, anything could be better than this. I'm getting spit on and fighting people every day. They call Spartanburg Murderburg because it's such a rough area. And I was always working the south side, like one of the worst sides of it. And I was like, the money's not worth it. I enjoy the heck out of it, but I'd rather just pursue YouTube and streaming and all that stuff.
Wow. So let's hang there for a second. So you said you made about $15 an hour when you left?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I want to, this actually is a good topic. So if you don't realize is policing, I don't care if you're in Southern California or if you're in South Carolina where you're at, policing is the exact same, even if you're in Columbus, Ohio, where AJ's at. Like, I don't care where you're at. Like, policing is the one industry where it doesn't change no matter where you're at. It may change the way we kind of do the job a little bit, but the calls that we go to are the exact same. You go on a domestic out in South Carolina, or if AJ goes on a domestic in Columbus, Ohio, it's the same domestic that I'm going on here in Southern California. Like, it's the exact same. However, the pay is way different. And so the reason I talk about pay right now is because, and one of our topics today is going to be law enforcement response to critical incident, is when you're not making that much money, but yet you're still going out there putting your life on the line just like the next person, or not even necessarily putting your life on the line, but getting put in a situation to where now you can, there's a lot of blowback that can come your way for $15 an hour. How do you stay motivated to do this job? Like, that's a hard question to ask. I mean, California's a lot different because we get paid pretty well, but if you're making $15 an hour, I mean, what is it? And what advice would you have for other people, other officers out there to stay motivated when you're not, making a decent income? Because one thing I will say is, as Americans, our priorities are all in the wrong places. I mean, I saw an article a few years ago where there's DJs in Las Vegas right now that make about $300,000 a night just to spin.
A night?
A night, bro. A night.
Is that on like Indeed, or like, how do I apply for that?
Right? Like how does that even happen? And like, I can't knock them because, I mean, if I was a DJ and I want to spin, like, yeah, shoot, go out there and make it. But the thing is like, where is that $300,000 coming from? Well, it's coming from the regular citizens out here that are going to pay money to get in the club, and the club actually has the money to afford to pay these people $300,000. Or, you go out and buy alcohol. Like, these guys will go to Vaughn's or Ralph's and buy a, $20 bottle of Ciroc or whatever, and they'll go into the club and they'll sell it for $300 now. But the reason I bring it up is because we're talking about priorities. So you have an officer that's putting his life on the line for $15 an hour, and yet it's the same officer that you're going to criticize when he makes a tough, difficult decision. You know what I mean? But yet we'll go spend, $500 to $3,000 to get into a nightclub to hear a DJ spin. That's not going to do nothing for your life. So tell me, what kind of words could you say to motivate a person that is doing a job and really not making that much money doing police work?
AJ.
Oh man, I mean, I think it ultimately depends on why you got into the job. If you got into the job for the right reasons, then there's really not much to say, because that should automatically supersede like everything that you could go through during the job. Granted, you will need some motivation and some encouragement every time, because I stand by this. Law enforcement is one of the most rewarding, but also one of the most stressful jobs you could have in America. And I firmly believe that. So I think if you got into it for the right reason, the finish line is very clear. You'll need some motivation and encouragement. And for that, just remind yourself why you got into it. But if you got into it for the wrong reasons, then you're going to need a little bit more.
Well, it's a selfless and thankful job, that's for sure. And the other part of that is, like you just said, AJ, you can't get into this job wanting to become a millionaire. Like, it's just, that shouldn't be your mindset. It should be a job that you go into that, you want to go in there and realize that it's going to be very selfless at times. But at the same time, I bring this up not because I want to talk about pay. I don't think we've actually ever talked about pay on this podcast. I don't think we ever have, but that's a real subject to talk about, when it comes to police work, because you have guys in California that make I know in Northern California, now granted the cost of living is a lot different, but if you're a cop in San Jose, if I'm not mistaken, I think their base pay is around $120,000 to $140,000 a year.
Where at?
In San Jose. There's actually Southern California agencies right now that I know that make about $120,000 to $130,000 base pay. So you take that, that's one extreme, whereas the far other extreme is you got a guy out in South Carolina where Donut is at making $15 an hour. And so the reason I bring that topic up is because there are people within law enforcement that will criticize officers for going out there and getting side jobs to survive, because they're like, why are you doing the side hustle? You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't, you should be focused here. And I think that kind of also gives people a negative connotation, when I think there's nothing wrong with actually going out there and trying to do other things as well to survive, because you have a family as well. So, I mean, AJ, you're getting the speaking thing off the ground, and Donut, you're a YouTuber. What do you have any encouragement for officers that are out there that are saying, hey, look, I love my job, but I want to go out there and try to also do something else, but yet people are making me feel guilty for trying to also do something else to supplement income?
I would say don't ever feel guilty about that, man, especially if you have a family. If you want to pursue your passion, just go for it. But don't be like me and just quit policing. You're going to start making that much money. Yeah, just
oh, absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah,
don't listen
absolutely.
to anyone.
And what other job do people feel so entitled to tell them like what to do on their personal time? Like, do people like go to doctors and be like, hey, I know you're a doctor, but you can't start a lawn care company. Like, come on, like, what?
Well, sometimes
your life
we can,
together,
sometimes
like-
we can be our worst enemies within our profession. Like, and
Oh,
maybe it
100%.
has something to do with, as cops, most cops we're type A personalities. And so because we're type A personalities, we see things, and if it's not the way I see it, then it's the wrong way. There's a lot of those type of personalities, and maybe that's what it is. And so I don't know, man, but I just want to give those people that are out there listening to this podcast, if you are motivated to do something else on the side, real estate, speaking, whatever it is, man, go for it. I mean, what were some of the things that motivated you, Donut, to, continue? Because obviously it was pretty hard for you. I mean, when you were broke. So,
Yeah.
I mean, was it
Yeah.
was it your son that motivated you? What was your why at that point when you didn't have law enforcement anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly my son that motivated me, and I knew that there was money in it, and I knew it was going to be a grind, and I just kept pushing myself. I would look at my son every day and be like, one day this is going to work, and I know it's going to work, and it's my passion, and I'm going to be able to put all this together. And I just kept grinding, man. I just kept pushing myself, mostly for him,
Nice. So let's transition and talk about what it is, some of the YouTube videos and things like that. What kind of videos are you out there making?
So I actually have 3 different channels now. The majority of my views come from my main channel, Donut Operator, and it's mostly critical incident police breakdowns. So I'll take some of these shootings, and I'll look at the different angles, and sometimes I'll even put a little map on there and show like what all the officers are doing, and I'll slow it down because people see all these videos on the news and they're like, oh my God, that's terrible, the police officer was in the wrong. But when you take it and you actually analyze it, you're like, oh wait, that wasn't wrong. He was protecting himself, and me and my child and all these other people. So yeah, just a lot of police breakdowns, and that's just where most of my views come from.
So let's talk about the importance of police breakdowns, because this is like a new age that we're living in. I know the first time I ever did a police breakdown was when AJ had gotten into his critical incident. I think was that the first time? No, it might have been. I can't remember. But I know it was one of the first. And so when AJ got in his critical incident, I did a breakdown. And the reason I did a breakdown is because I felt like AJ needed a voice that he could, like, AJ couldn't be his own voice. You know what I mean? And so that's why I did it. I wanted to go on there and, as a police officer, be able to express a voice for my brother, who I know was hurting at the time, when he couldn't be his own voice. So AJ, let me ask you this, like, how important was that breakdown for you? Because I know I wasn't the only one that did a breakdown. There were multiple people that did breakdowns for you. How was it on the receiving end of that breakdown? And was it beneficial or detrimental to you as a person and as an officer?
Oh man, I think it was extreme. Actually, I know it was extremely beneficial. And the reason being is because, in a sense, the reason why most of those videos gain the traction they do is everyone does their own breakdown. Like, whether it's they do it in their head and then they just share it, or they share it and then write a long caption, or they do their own video breakdown. And I would say 90% of the videos being shared as soon as that happened was exactly that, but in a very negative way, in a very one-sided way. Like, people were sharing the videos going, oh my goodness, this guy's racist. Like, I'm half black. Okay, whatever. Like, or, he should have did this, or what about this and what about that? And it's just like, the moment like you guys started getting on there and breaking down what actually happened, not even like from a bias standpoint, or like, I'm a police officer, I need to stand up for my brother standpoint, but like actually taking yourself away from that relationship and looking at it from both sides and going, okay, hey, look, did anybody think about this, or did anybody see this? Like, it was the light that I needed in a very dark time. So I know it helped me out tremendously.
Got you. So that being said, do you think that it's equally, because I don't know, Donut, have you ever done a breakdown on like a negative police encounter?
I have. I've done several of them, because I'm not just because, but people are always saying, oh, you'll defend a cop no matter what. But I've done several breakdowns where I'm like, look, this was messed up. He shouldn't have done this. Like, I do those. By the way, everyone.
And why do you think it's so important to do those negative breakdowns as well, don't it?
It's just so people can see that you're not that one-sided guy who's always going to say, well, the cop was. It's like that sometimes, and I'll correct them and be like, look, no one's perfect. They're dirtbag cops out there, just like there are dirtbag people in any profession. And it's just important to show people, hey, I'm not this guy who thinks police are in the right 100% of the time.
Now, I would imagine, because you are no longer working as an officer, it's probably a lot easier for you to do a breakdown than it would be myself or AJ. And just because one of the things that people don't realize sometimes is when I do, and this is on both sides of it. I mean, this is people that are police officers and this is people that aren't police officers, but they don't realize how difficult it is for me to do a breakdown. And the reason that is because one, I still have a job. You know what I mean? That's my priority. Like my job as a police officer is still my priority, and it will always be my priority unless something else happens where I'm no longer a police officer anymore. But until that happens, I'm still a police officer, so I'm still held accountable to not only myself, my family, but also the people that I work with. And so on one end, I'm taking a chance by going out there and doing a breakdown of, you know, some activity that was probably perceived as being wrong by officers. But I also take a chance as defending officers with the community just because they're like, you know, you can't please everybody. And the reason I bring that up is because of this. Is like I've had it said before on both ends of the spectrum that, you know, oh, you just defend police, that's all you do, you'll never call a bad cop out. Or the times I do call some officers out for doing something wrong, you'll have cops just saying, how could you be so quick to judge? And that's one of the things I've recognized as an officer is very difficult because, and I've said this before, AJ, and I've said it, I'll say it again, is like I can go out tomorrow and be involved in a critical incident, and now I'm the subject of a video, which, you know, recently I was involved in a critical incident. Now I can't talk about what that critical incident was, but I was involved in a critical incident. And so now what I want to do is I want to talk about the aftermath of what officers go through when we have critical incidents, because it's not just what we see on the video and then once that happens, it's done. Like, I think we get this false sense of reality that, you know, when a critical incident happens, the officer goes back to living his normal life and, you know, so does the suspect or the family or whatever it may be, and then it's done with. That's not the case at all. So, AJ, I know you've been involved in a critical incident before, a few of them. Let's talk about some of the things that came after the initial event happened.
Man, I don't know how much time we have. Like, you
we got a
name
lot,
it,
bro.
Listen, you name it, it has happened. And it's funny you asked that because I was just thinking about that last night or the night before. All my nights running together now that I got this little monster in my world. I should probably not call him that. But
foul for calling your
man,
son a
yeah,
monster.
it is. I'll let him slap me around when he gets a little older. Man, I've had my face on national news more times than I could count. And I mean, you name the platform, like it's been on there. And I would say out of every time it's been in the news general, including the national news, maybe 5% had almost accurate information. I've had protesters show up to my house. I've had flyers of my personal information, including pictures of my family passed out in random neighborhoods. I've had protesters show up to my church multiple times. I've had credible threats online that have had to be investigated. You name it, I've had it happen, and it has all stemmed from critical incidents. So my first year on the street, I was involved in a police officer shooting, and it made national news because I shot a guy through a door who was trying to stab me with a needle loaded full of heroin. None of the news outlets aired that. None of them aired that. And every single news outlet that aired it had some sort of negative spin on it, right? Like, this officer didn't know what was on the other side of that door. He could have hit an innocent bystander on the other side of that door. Like, no one mentioned it was a drug house. No one mentioned the firearms that were inside the house that we knew that were in there. No one mentioned what we were actually doing there. We were working the house, you know, whatever. So I've had it, you know, you name it. I've had it happen.
So the reason I asked that is because, you know, I've referred to this podcast as being my therapy. You know what I mean? And it really is in many ways, because this is, you know, AJ, you're my brother, and Donut, you're good people, and Billy. This is my opportunity not only to be a voice for myself, but to be a voice for other police officers out there and a voice for the community. And so I'm going to get really transparent with you guys right now. Without giving you guys any information, because I can't. I mean, I just can't. I mean, I'll get in trouble at my job. But all I can say is I can talk to you guys about how I feel, and I can talk to you guys about just a simple fact of what I'm dealing with in my head and all those things. But, you know, I was involved in a critical incident recently, very, very recently. And like I said, I can't tell you guys what it was, but I will tell you that we've been doing this podcast for about a year and a half now. And my passion has been to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. And I do presentations all over the place of putting people in real life scenarios as police officers. Prior to this critical incident, I had been involved in, I had did so many different critical incidents where we would do scenarios and role playing with. And it's just crazy to see the response of the public. But just recently going through another critical incident myself, like I was so confident with the decision I had to make, whatever I had to do during that situation. Very, very confident. And that's why I talk about all the time as far as police officers, if you're an officer out there, you need to make sure you know your laws. You need to make sure you know case law. You need to know what your policies are. So that way you can operate and go out there and perform to your highest ability. You need to, because you don't want to play slow. But what happens is after a critical incident is over, as a person, you start to just play mind games with yourself. You know what I mean? You start to play mind games with, did I do the right decision? And then not only that, you start to hear a lot of chatter. Was this person's actions correct? Was it not correct? You hear the chatter not only from people of other officers, but also from community members. And then sometimes you start to make up chatter in your head, and it may not even be, real chatter out there. You start to make things up like, are the people saying this or people not saying that? Then you start to think like, man, like, what if I would have did this, or what if I would have did that, or what if I would have did this? And then that's not even including the whole investigation that goes in behind things, or what's going to take place for, the next couple years or 3 years, or the other person on the receiving end of it. And the reason I bring all of this stuff up is because law enforcement, man, going back to the beginning of our conversation, is a very, very, very thankless job at times. We put ourselves in situations that can be scrutinized. And although we may have the intentions to do the right thing, and although we may go out there and do the best job that we possibly can, no matter what you do, people will always have a reason to find fault in what your actions were during that situation, despite what the intent was. Now, I'm not speaking specifically towards the officers that go out there and shouldn't be officers. I'm not speaking for those people, because I cannot go out there and say like, I can't get in their mind. But what I am talking about is the people that go out there, the officers that go out there and do the right things for the right reasons, and yet still have to face this decision, what they made. You know what I mean? And so that's why I talk about these police breakdowns. And that's why I do it, is because I look at police breakdowns as being a voice for the people, a voice for the officers. So that way people can understand, what's going on in an officer's mind when that officer can't defend himself. And so, Donut, have you found yourself, or have people reached out to you as far as giving you a breakdown or actually wanting an explanation for certain videos that are out there?
I get hundreds of requests a day for anything you can think of police related. Yeah, Twitter, especially on Twitter, I get dozens of emails about it. It's really cool though when I have officers who have been in these critical incidents who email me, anonymously, and they're like, "Hey, I was in this thing. The media's getting it wrong." Just like AJ was saying, they didn't release like hardly any of the information that shows what he did was the right decision. But yeah, it's so cool getting the officers emailing me and wanting me to break down their incident.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had officers on the flip side, like where you've done like a bad police breakdown or like a bad police video or whatever? Have you ever had officers come and say like, well, we don't know the full story, or like come to the defense of like a bad officer?
Yeah, actually, I remember doing a few of them where like you watch the video and it's clear. It's like that officer shouldn't have done that. But yeah, you'll still have people come to you and be like, you shouldn't do that. I thought they were your brothers, like all this stuff. It's like, I'm going to call out dirtbaggery anytime I see it.
Dirtbaggery, I like it.
That's a new word. And so I think that's
curse.
I know, sorry y'all, sorry. I put the nerd cursing thing in place. But the thing is, man, and that is so true, and that's the hard part, man, for me, is like, stepping out on a whim to try to do the right thing for the right reasons, and yet, you'll still have people come and say, how could you do this or how could you do that? And it almost feels like you're in a no-win situation sometimes. But I think this is a new age that it's new. And I think that's why people are more so doing it now, because it's new. Like before technology existed, before platforms like social media existed, we didn't really have a voice as police officers to come out there and give an explanation of why we did what we did. You know what I mean? And so, but if we're gonna go out there and defend when we do the right things, we have to go out there and not defend when we do the wrong thing. You got anything on that, AJ?
No. I mean, I never really thought about that as far as like the whole social media thing. Like we never had a voice prior to that. But I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, man. I do have a question for Donut though. You ready for this, man? It's a good one. He's like, okay.
I think I know what the question's going to be.
I'm focused. Nah, this is a legit question.
Oh.
So as you probably are well aware of, there are a ton of people who have opinions about how police officers should do their jobs, whether they're police officers or whether they're not police officers. What would your one piece of advice be for everybody? So like if you could say something right now on the podcast and everybody in the world would hear it in regards to police officers and how they do their jobs, what would it be?
Do your research.
There you go.
Don't jump to, oh, well, that police officer was bad in that video right there. To get a bunch of different news sources and put it all together, and you might have an idea of what happened. Don't just get mad at the cop. Like actually read why he did that before you make an emotional decision. You know,
absolutely. And that emotional decision is a good phrase to use, because a lot of what I see, at least on social media, is so emotionally driven. It's like they forget to put like their intellect or like their brain into it. Like you're so emotionally involved in like hating the police or wanting the police to have a agenda of some sort, right? Like whether it's you think all cops are racist or you know what have you, that you just automatically forget the logic of, hey, this guy just shot and killed somebody and was shooting at the cops. Of course he got shot and killed, right? So, that's a solid response.
We have a saying on my channel, and it's context is racist, because I'll jump in some of the comments on some of these shootings or some of the things where it doesn't show anything that happened leading up to the incident. And I'll say, well, what happened? And then it's racist, bootlicker, ACAB, like all that stuff.
ACAB. I don't know why, but I think ACAB is one of the funniest insults ever. Like when I see it pop up on my page, which is easily a few times a day, like I giggle every time. Like ACAB, like that's what you gonna hit me with right now? Like
I don't even know what ACAB is.
all cops are bastards.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know either till like last year. I was like, ACAB, what is an ACAB? I Googled, I was like, okay, that's funny.
I've gotten bootlicker a couple of times. Some people have called us bootlicker. Some other stuff too. Now, Donut, what would you say is probably your most,
just for the record,
impactful police breakdown you've ever done? Or what's one of the breakdowns you've done that was probably the most popular one?
The most popular one is definitely the one you were talking about, where the officer went after the active shooter and then like two-tapped him across the interstate. That was a crazy one, because it started off with the guy shooting. He shot someone in the face in the little mall, the strip mall right there, and then he shot at some more people, and then the cop showed up, and it was crazy because he had to run through the restaurant and he had to sprint like several hundred yards, and then he made the shot. I think people like just really appreciated how awesome that police officer was. One of the more impactful ones though towards law enforcement. I don't know if I can talk about the whole thing, but I did do a breakdown about something that happened at a protest. And in the end, the chief ended up calling that officer in because the video got a few million views. And the chief was like, Donut saved your ass on this one.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool.
That's deep, man.
Yep. And just to follow that up, I have had, let me think how to phrase this. I have had police officers reach out to me and make similar comments, especially like regarding like my incident, like, hey, I watched such and such do a breakdown on this. Like it kind of changed my perspective. So what you are doing, Donut, is absolutely like irreplaceable and needed 100%. Yep.
Man, I had one for yours, AJ, where a few people hit me up and they were like, man, when I first saw this video, I was furious at watching it. And then after listening to your breakdown, not only did I have a better understanding of it, but I actually feel convicted and wrong for saying some of the stuff that I was saying towards this officer, because I was being led to believe otherwise by what the media was putting out there, man.
Yeah. I'll tell you the funniest thing that came from the most recent one was I got on Twitter, which Man, Twitter is a whole other world. Like I had
We
no
just started
idea.
the Twitter actually. I got like 3 posts on there right now.
Listen, I don't even get on Twitter anymore because they ate me up on Twitter. Like I got on there and I was like,
AJ's like,
why? And
AJ's like, forget Twitter. I ain't messing with Twitter no more.
Dude, Twitter's awful.
Twitter is insane. And the thing about it is like you don't have to refresh. Like it just comes up like real time. Like they type something that pops up and you can't delete or edit nothing. I'm like, this is wild. But I made the mistake of logging in Twitter a month after the video because someone told me that the video originally surfaced on Twitter. And I'm like, well, I don't really get on Twitter, but I have an account. And I look at my partner, I'm like, oh, we got to check this out. So I opened up Twitter and it was like my phone almost blew up. I mean, it was just vibrating nonstop. So I opened the messages and there's like, you can see like little thumbnails of like people's pictures that are sending you messages. So there's like this little white kid. And I'm like, well, let me click, see what he's saying. Right. So I click on it and he says, hey, Officer AJ, my name's Cody. I'm 10 or 9 or something like that. Period. F you. Oh, I busted out laughing. I was like, come on, Cody, man.
Oh,
That's how you feel, man. Like,
oh, that's hilarious, bro.
there's no
Hey,
context behind it.
comment
no,
of the year.
like,
Comment
introduced
of the year.
himself. Hi, and I read it like in a little kid voice. Like, hi, my name's Cody. I'm 9.
Oh, that's
F you.
great.
I was like,
Oh, that's
okay.
good stuff. Hey,
Appreciate-
Cody's the
appreciate
man
it.
of the year for that one, bro.
I
He gets-
actually
he
sent him
gets
a thumbs up
MVP.
emoji. Like, I appreciate
Oh,
that. I
man.
laughed, man.
So Donut, I know you recently. I haven't even got to see it yet. I've been getting hit up a lot about this. I'm sure you have, AJ. The situation in New York, where the officers, the guy hems them up, and then it looks like they beat this guy up or whatever. I've gotten hit up a lot. I actually reached out to some people in New York. That's the one thing that's advantageous to being on social media and being an influencer on social media. You start to get connections all over the world. I mean, it's funny, man. I got hit up today in my DM and said, "Hey, no, I actually got an email, and it said, hey, can you help me out? Me and my boyfriend or something like that are having relationship issues." And I'm thinking like, when did I become a marriage or counseling specialist?
Right.
But whatever. But anyways, long story
Dr.
short,
Tillman.
I know, right? Dr. Tillman over here. So, but anyways, I've reached out to some people out in New York, and they're supposed to get back to me the first part of this week to get more information. And that kind of goes back to what Donut's talking about: is get as much information as research as you can before you can debrief a situation. So tell me about what you know about that situation, and then kind of what your debrief was about. And if you guys aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, there was a situation that came to us recently out of New York where a guy gets beat up, and I guess allegedly he was coming home from work or something like that. So did you froze? Oh yeah, did I freeze?
Yeah, listen. Just for the record, we're gonna clear it up right now. Me and Donut, we see each other nonstop. Like we're moving, we're talking. Ryan is freezing.
Hey,
So,
man, hey, no,
who
no,
has
no.
a connection problem?
Whatever. Y'all heard what I was saying. Did y'all get the question? Did you get the question, Donut?
Yeah. You were asking about like what I know about the NYPD thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I saw the video and was like, that looks bad, but I started researching it, and it's another one of those videos where you don't see what happened, of course, before the officer puts hands on the dude. And they got called in. It was a shots fired call. The shot spotter, the little electronic thing that goes off and tells them that there's shots being fired in a neighborhood for the park. Officers show up to the park. The guy who's in the video, the suspect, and so they called up with both of them, and they gave a ticket to one of the guys and let him go on his way for, I think it was smoking marijuana. They were smoking weed in the park, and then that's when the camera starts on the other guy. And I watched when, and so all the other officers, if you look closely, they're running code. They have lights and sirens on. There was a foot chase before that, so obviously that's why they're doing that. They all show up, and then they try to put the guy in the handcuffs, and he starts actively resisting. He's kicking. He's flailing his arms all over the place. And it looks bad because there's like 6 or 7 officers that get around the guy and pull him down and put him in handcuffs. And I've slowed it down, and I've watched the video as much as I can. And I only see one officer throw 2 strikes, the whole ordeal until they get him into handcuffs. And I mean, it looks bad, but that's what I know about it so far.
AJ, talk to us about the machine that Donut's talking about, the whole radar
Shot spotter.
Yeah, the shot spotter. What is that?
So Shot Spotter is a technology that the help me out here. The military came up with, I'm sorry, I'm tired, man. I'm dozing off. That the government used to help, or the military used to help identify like where shots were coming from. They basically put like high frequency microphones like all over a certain area, and they use like triangulation to pretty much pinpoint exactly where a shot came from. So we have it here, the department that I work for, and we actually have an app on our phone. And I've sat in a parking lot, heard a gunshot, grabbed the radio, aired it, and by the time dispatch acknowledged my traffic, it had already popped up on the software on my phone and dropped a dot exactly where the shot had came from. And we could go directly to that dot using our phone or our MDCs, which are our computers in the cruisers. And we'll, I would say 9 times out of 10, find shell casings exactly where that dot is.
You know what's crazy to me out of all of this is that if you are an agency that has ShotSpotter, man, that means like you guys must have shootings pretty frequently to get some technology where you need, you know, things to help you locate where shots are coming from.
Oh yeah. No comment.
The reason I asked what that technology was is just because, you know, that small little piece of information also helps bring context to a situation like that, because you realize, now, like I said, granted, I haven't did all my research yet, so I haven't come out about it yet, but that also goes into play as far as when you're, you know, why and who we're contacting. I know from the video, the little of the video I saw is he's saying, why are you stopping me? Why are you stopping me? Why are you detaining me? And stuff like that. Well, that leads to your reasonable suspicion or probable cause eventually. If you have technology like that and you're going to a shots fire call, whatever it may be, that also leads into, you know, the thought process of a police officer. And so, you know, I want all of our listeners and viewers to understand is that our jobs are very, very, very difficult. And going back to, you know, critical thinking in a critical situation, critical incident, there's a lot that goes on in your mind. And when everything comes down to the wire and when everything comes down to being evaluated by not only, you know, other departments that investigate a critical incident, but also lawyers and attorneys, all they're thinking about is your mindset. That's all they're thinking about. What was your mindset? And so when we get upset that, you know, police officers got let off for, you know, whatever it may be, killing somebody that was unarmed, it's not the fact that they killed somebody that was unarmed. It was, what was the intent behind killing that person that was unarmed? Was their intent to stop a threat or stop a person that they perceived to be a threat? Or was their intent to murder somebody? And that's what I think people don't get confused about when evaluating police videos, is they just see the raw content from a perceptual standpoint and they judge it based off of emotion, as opposed to, you know, really looking at the situation and saying, okay, what was the intent behind the officers using whatever force they do? And so I always use the analogy of this is like, you know, sometimes me and my wife will have discussions with each other, you know, and in those discussions, you know, if I get an attitude, you know what I mean? Like my wife is going to get upset, right? She's going to be all pissed off, like, you know, why are you got an attitude or whatever? I could say the same exact thing without an attitude and it will be perceived way differently. And so, you know, I would always tell my wife or vice versa is like, you know, what was the intent behind what I said? Was the intent to really just be degrading to you? Or was my intent to really ask a question, you know what I mean? And not trying to be, you know, all pissy with you. And so that's kind of how I describe, you know, a person's intent is like, look at the intent. Don't look at the reaction or emotional response. Sometimes as human beings, we'll lead with emotion, but it doesn't necessarily display the intent. Did I freeze again?
Yeah, man. You ice cubes over there.
Well, y'all clear on my end.
I bet we are.
Oh man, where we at on time, Billy?
49.
Billy, did you have any questions as a civilian? Because you always, I'm putting Billy on the spot, and Billy has his own mic now. We're gonna keep doing this setup. I like this because Billy can actually chime in, and Billy's gonna be a guest always now on our podcast. But as a civilian, Billy, what do you think about breakdowns or watching, you know, Donut do a breakdown on a police situation and incident? Is that beneficial to you or not really?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's beneficial. But I also thought, just from my perspective, that it was common sense to wonder what happened before the video started. But it's not common sense. So I think the fact that you guys bring that up, that's the important part, that people need to learn, like, oh, I should learn why they were there. Because I would have thought everyone would think that way.
Yeah, that's the hard thing is we don't. You know what I mean? Shoot, like I've seen so many videos and people would just start going off the cusp of what they see and not even realize. Like, I think we just did the video recently where the guy was running away from police officers. Did you ever do a breakdown on that one, Donut, where the guy is running away from police officers going towards an element or preschool, and the officers end up shooting him in the back and killing him?
No, I don't think I did that one.
Yeah, that was a while back. I have to send it to you. But it was, anyways, long story short, a guy was pulled over on a traffic stop. And the thing that people don't get from the video was they don't realize that the person they pulled over was somebody that they were actually following. He was a wanted suspect in a homicide a day before. And so they knew who they were pulling over. It wasn't like they pulled over some random guy. So when they're talking to him, he ends up leading the officers on a foot pursuit. Now, other information that the officers had is that they know this guy is known to carry firearms. The homicide, the weapon that was used was a firearm. And so as he goes over a gate, not only does he go over a gate, but he's going towards a preschool. And so having all of that knowledge at hand, one of the officers decides to shoot him in the back as he goes towards and he also reaches towards his waistline. And so if you look at the video, it looks like an officer shoots a guy in the back. But if you don't have the context and saying, well, he's a wanted suspect in a homicide, he's known to carry firearms, the officers knew who he pulled over, the officers saw him reach for the waistband, the officers saw that there was a preschool that he was running towards, all of that changes the context of how you watch that video. So that's why it's so important.
Oh, absolutely, man. The totality of the circumstances, everything in front of the officer at the time, and people, they could BuzzFeed or Now This could take that video, and I'm sure they did, and just play the clip of cop shooting him in the back and be like, officer murders innocent man, and some garbage like that.
Yes, been a victim of that before. Definitely been a victim of that before. So do you miss the job now that you left police work?
I miss SWAT. That was really, really, really fun. Yeah, but other than that, there are times when I do miss it. Just it was fun. It was a super fun job. I thought it was awesome, but for my family's sake, it wasn't worth the money.
Absolutely. Now, did you have a full-time SWAT team?
No, we had a part-time SWAT team.
So just kind of like on call, they would call you, gear up, and like go out and handle what you had to handle.
Yeah, exactly. We were all patrol or investigations, some narc guys, and they would. For the people out there that don't know what that is, part-time SWAT teams, you're a normal police officer, you work a regular job, and then they call you in when stuff goes sideways. Yeah,
absolutely. So you gotta fill me in because I'm an old man. I don't understand this whole electronic world. Twitch is a website or an app where people like watch people play video games, right?
Yeah. They can watch you play video games, or there are they call it IRL in real life streams, and I do those sometimes where I just sit here and read police stories and we discuss it and things like that. I actually do that more than play video games.
Gotcha. What's the video game of choice?
Escape from Tarkov right now.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's a combat simulator, battle simulator. It's really hardcore. You start off with a bunch of gear that you pay a bunch of money for, and if you die in the game, you lose it all, and you got to re-equip yourself.
like real money.
Oh no, the in-game money. Yeah. But it's just super intense. It's good
this
stuff.
Is real. Okay.
It's like the top game right now for all streaming platforms.
Nice. So you got to excuse me because I'm just like ADD and out right now. If I told you I played Call of Duty, would you like laugh like, ha, amateur? Is that like still a game like real gamers play?
No, man. I like the new one. The new one's awesome. I love playing it.
Yeah, I think the new one is sweet. Except I'm that guy that's like running around with his rifle in the air.
Man,
like,
I used to be a beast in Call of Duty. But what's funny about all of this is that I remember like growing up, you tell your mom or dad like, yeah, I'm playing video games. Like, hey, turn off that game. Like, gaming is not going to get you, a job and all this other stuff. And now it's crazy. Like, we live in a society. I think I was watching something on TV a few weeks ago where they had like a freaking stadium full of people just watching people like game. I'm like, wow. Like as a kid growing up now, like if I try to tell my son Grayson, like, hey, you can't do anything with that, like Grayson could honestly look back and be like, yeah, I can. Like, you know what I mean? You prevent me from doing me and being a beast. So like, that's crazy. That's so crazy.
I throw it in my dad's face all the time because growing up, he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to play video games. He saes, there's no money in that. Like, all right, I'll send him
you, Dad.
Yeah, I'll send him a copy of my Twitch paycheck every month and be like, hey, Dad, look at this. There was a 15-year-old that just won the big Fortnite tournament and won $3 million.
Are you serious?
$3 million? from the free online game Fortnite.
Yeah,
So
the big tournaments that they have.
is it just like ad revenue? Like, is that where this money is coming from? Like sponsors or
Sponsors, yeah, probably sponsors pull the money together. And I mean, Fortnite's making hand over fist. It's a free game, but there's in-game items that people can buy, so that's where all the money comes from.
Yeah, I
$3
saw
million.
that.
Mm-hmm.
See, my wife is over here mad that Grayson's playing Fortnite. As soon as I get home, I'm like, go play your Fortnite right now.
Yeah,
Don't come out of that room
practice.
until I tell you to. Go practice.
you get in your room and you don't come out until you're undefeated. That is
Oh,
insane.
man.
What's funny is when I first got the new Call of Duty, I was playing it online, and there was like I don't even know. There's like a game inside the game where like if your teammates die, they get to watch you play until you die. Like no one gets to respawn until like the whole team is dead. And I didn't know that, so I'm like hiding because I'm like trying to figure out the map. And apparently I was the last one.
They're like, AJ, go.
Alive. So everyone's like, yeah. Well, I wasn't camping. I was just like kind of like crawling around, like trying to figure the map out, like along the outskirts of it. And everyone's like talking. Well, not everybody's talking to me, but like you could see like people talking back and forth and whatnot. But anyway, I'm like using like tactics that I would use in real life. Like I'm like pieing corners and like, peeking and whatnot. And after I got killed, they were all like making fun of me. Like, man, you were like using like real life police tactics. Like, but you must be in the military or a cop or something like that. And the funny part about it is there was a guy behind me the whole time and just like stabbed me. Like, like thought you was sweet.
Oh, man.
Knife in the back.
So Donut, man, what's next for you, man? I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on, man. What can the world expect for Donut within the next few years?
I'm just gonna keep grinding the same stuff I'm doing, man. I've had networks contact me about doing television shows, and I tell them no, I'm not gonna do that ever. Probably, I don't like working with big networks. I've been burned by a few. I'm not gonna say any names already. Like I'll give somebody some good ideas, and they'll be like, "We can do this show with you," and then suddenly someone else is on the same show that I described to them or sent them notes about. I'm just gonna keep doing my own thing, man. I'm not ever gonna work for anyone again. So
that's cool.
That.
That's cool, man. If there's anything you can tell our audience, man, or anything that you would like them to know about you or anything like that, is there any last parting words that you would have with them?
Yeah, probably the same thing we were talking about earlier. Just do your research before you come to an emotional decision in your head about a critical police incident, because there's so many different aspects to look at, so many different things going on in those situations. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just please research.
and let me ask you this. This is one last question I had for you is, how do you do your research, Donut? One of the ways I do my research when I'm doing police breakdowns. And so just so you guys know what I do, because I always talk about telling people to do research, but I don't really tell them how I do my research. Kind of the step-by-step process is I'll get a video or people will show me a video. And so as soon as I get a video, I'll either go to that department's website and see if they have any press releases about it, because one of the reasons I start there is because, they're going to say, they'll have something to say about it. And if there's some type of immediate discipline or something like that, then you kind of know a little bit about the situation. If not, then you got to continue to look further. And then after that, I'll go read article after article after article. If it's been a long investigation, then I'll go actually read and research, what were some of the notes that came out of the court case or court hearing from it. If it's not, then the other thing I'll look at is always compare stuff side by side with case law. And I know you've done some case law breakdown before, I think. But talking about like Graham versus Connor or things like that and what officers can and cannot do. That's what I'll also do is I'll compare it side by side and give that breakdown. I did that with AJ's because a lot of times people were getting mad at AJ for going hands-on and punching this dude. But yet when you look at case law, when you look at, what you can and cannot do as an officer, it makes it easier to understand why he did what he did. So I compare all that stuff together and then I'll put it together, and then that's kind of how I'll do a breakdown on the situation. So walk me through kind of your process of how you do a breakdown, or the research you do to do a breakdown.
Same exact way that you do. I always go to the police departments. Usually they're on social media and they get the press releases out immediately. So I always look at their Facebooks. A lot of police departments have YouTube channels now. Some of them have Twitter. So I go through every social media thing I can to try and see if the police department's releasing anything about it. You said you read article after article. I do the same thing. I try to cross-reference, because one article isn't going to tell you the whole story ever. Mm-hmm. You have to look at multiple from different sources and just kind of piece the story together, to get an idea of what had happened. And I just go from there. If I can contact the police department and try and get something from them, I try to do that. But usually right away, you can't do that and until the investigation is complete. But pretty much the same process, man.
And let me tell you guys this as a disclaimer. I don't care how much research I do. I don't care how much research Donut does. I don't care how much research AJ does. we will never 100% know the mindset of an officer when they're involved in a critical incident. And so even if I may get it wrong, even if Donut gets it wrong or AJ, who, no matter who, I will never 100% know what the mindset of that officer was when they were in that situation. None of us ever will. I don't even care if it's the attorney, the lawyer, whatever it is. And here's why. And I'm telling you this from my own experience involved in a critical incident, is that I know exactly what I was doing, why I was doing it, what I was thinking about, what I was seeing, all these other things. And to try to share that with somebody else, it's still not going to give them a full picture of the way I felt, because I can't tell you how to feel about something. I can tell you what I saw. I can tell you the emotions that were going on, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to feel it like I'm going to feel it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the hair is going to raise on your arms the way it may raise on my arms. And so I think that's important for people to know, is that I'm going to do as much research as I can and try to get it as best as I can to, mimic or understand or convey, what people are seeing. But there's never, ever going to be a point in time where I can ever speak for that officer 100%, because I can't convey what they were experiencing emotionally. Am I right in saying that? I mean, both you guys are officers, so am I right in saying that, or am I off a little bit with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Real quick, how would people get a hold of you, Donut? Like, give us your handle.
Yes, please.
On
Give
all
us
those, all those platforms.
And you guys go support them too.
All right, if you guys can remember this, it's Donut Operator on everything. So that's yeah. If you want to reach me to talk about some of this stuff, it's donutoperator@gmail.com. That's the best way to reach me. And then
Nice.
I'm on every social media platform, so I'm always looking at messages and stuff on there.
How'd you come up with the name Donut Operator?
I was making fun of the whole SWAT dudes calling themselves operators thing, and yeah, so I thought it was funny.
Oh, I
for
love
you.
that. I love that, man. So, AJ, did you have a fair or foul? I know Billy did. We're gonna end up with Billy's fair or foul, but did you have one, AJ?
I do. Yes. This is my fair or foul. I need everybody to chime in on this. Is no one told me how much sleep you will lose out on when you have a child. So fair or foul, I didn't take anybody serious when they were like, oh, get your sleep while you can, or you're not gonna have sleep for a week. Like,
yeah, you foul.
I literally ain't slept more than 3 hours like at a time since he's got here. So fair or foul, I ain't take y'all serious.
Foul.
I
Foul,
appreciate y'all.
And also foul that you didn't even listen. So the one episode I did by myself, AJ didn't even listen to it. Foul.
Oh my gosh.
How you don't even listen to your own podcast?
I mean, in my defense, I got like a newborn at the house. I'm trying to help my wife out with.
Oh man. So before we get to your fair foul, Billy, AJ did do the Officer Down Memorial. I didn't want to skip an episode without doing the Officer Down Memorial if you didn't already have that.
Yeah, so as you said, I didn't listen to the latest podcast you did, but I did check the page, and as far as ODMP goes, we haven't had a line of duty death since 2/25. So it looks like it's been a while now, unless you guys could tell me other words or otherwise. Looks like we haven't had one since the 25th of last month.
Okay, yeah, I haven't had any pop up on mine, so
Yeah.
yeah, so shout out to not shout out, but our thoughts and prayers out to the families of those who lost somebody in the line of duty. Like I always say, please reach out to us because you truly do matter, and your loved one matters to us. So with that being said, Billy, take it away, bro.
All right, guys, fair or foul. So when you're adding someone into your phone and you don't know them well enough where the name is enough, so you're like, Chad, work. So it's kind of like, oh, who's Chad? Oh, they're from work. So Ryan and I have been working together for a year and a half.
I love it. I love it.
Ryan and I have been working together for a year and a half, and I look at his phone and it says, Billy Church.
Yes.
So Ryan and I met at church probably 4 years ago. Fair or foul that I have not been upgraded to just Billy. So he's got to have so many Billies in his life, he can't, remember me.
Hey, no, is it fair or foul that Billy was over here all in my business, seeing who was coming up on my phone? Oh, that is so funny. That's so right. I couldn't tell you how many contacts I have on my phone, bro. Like, with just association of wherever I met him at. So yes, I do know Billy's last name. Yes, I know he will be upgraded, but I don't know. Fair or foul on that one.
Foul. Ryan Hollywood Tillman.
Yeah, right. Oh
Dude,
man.
I do the same exact thing, and I don't ever go back and change them.
No,
I have
why?
so many names that have the companies they're with, or, how I met them, like church.
Oh man, that's too funny, man. Billy's been waiting to get that off of his chest. And shout out to those listeners who laughed at me last on my episode by myself when I thought Lake Michigan was an ocean instead of a lake. So if you guys want to hear about that, Donut look like what?
I don't even know what to say to that.
Oh man. So hey, we really appreciate you guys. Truly, truly appreciate you guys. One of our new goals for the podcast, we actually are averaging right around almost 10,000 downloads per month. And so that's phenomenal. I sent the guys an article yesterday saying that if you have over, I can't even remember what it was. I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000 downloads. You're in the top, or no, it was 10,000. If you're in the top, if you have 10,000 downloads per month, you're in the top 5% of podcast. And so that's
awesome.
huge. Yeah. So that's huge news for us. I don't even, how many countries are we in now, Billy?
About over 50.
Yeah, we're in over. I know it's over 60. 'Cause I think the last time we checked, it was like 68. So, so we're over 68 countries, and we recently just hit over 100,000 downloads as a podcast, and we've only been around for about a year and a half. So that's huge news. But our new goal is we want to get to about 5,000 downloads per episode, and we also want to get to well over 10,000 downloads per month. So one of the ways we're going to get there is by giving you guys content every single week. And so we've already talked about it. We're going to start putting on an episode every single week. But with us doing that, we also need you guys to share our stuff, share our content, and the most important thing is give us 5-star reviews, but not just, or not a 5-star rating, but not just a rating, give us a review. Tell us why you guys like the podcast, so that way we can continue to put out this good content, because that's the only thing that's going to help us grow. So thank you guys so much. It's been nothing but a pleasure. And we, like I always say, we got a lot of new things coming soon. So, and Donut, man, I want to just thank you again, brother. Am I freezing? And y'all keep laughing, bro.
It's only right. It's only right that we go out with him freezing. Only right.
Hey, it's good on our end, and that's all that matters, bro. Because we got because
y'all in person, y'all can see each other in real life.
whatever, man. Donut, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, bro. You're gonna be a lifelong friend from here on out. You're in South Carolina, North Carolina.
South Carolina.
South Carolina. So next time I'm out in South Carolina, if that ever is, I'm gonna hit you up, man. But thank you again, man. Thank you for donating your time to come share some of your wisdom with us about the professional law enforcement.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back sometime.
Oh, we'll definitely do that. AJ, you got any closing words, bro?
Get sleep. Everybody get sleep. It's precious. It's precious when you don't have it. Take a nap right now.
Oh, man. Hashtag get sleep, man. We appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.